What's up everybody, Juan. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 reasons on why I think the Volkswagen Touareg is one of the best tow vehicles on the market. So before we get started, I wanted to basically say that this is going to be comparing to vehicles of the same time frame. So obviously you guys know my Touareg came out in 2010, so you have to put it in perspective of other 2010 vehicles at that time. Also is the price point, because I know probably going to get some comments about how their Ford F-250 is better and so on and so forth, which ideally, if you're going to be towing like non-stop, probably should get a truck. I will be the first to admit that, but for cost wise, you know, my Touareg was only about $10,500 since the whole Dieselgate and the reduction in values, versus even a used F-250 or something like that, or even a Cummins 2500 of a decent year without having like excessive mileage. It's going to cost you about 30 grand anyway, so it's a huge price difference there. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. First reason is the big brakes. So if you compare trucks of that time frame, even some trucks now, there are 1 or 2 piston calipers in the front, maybe 1 or 2 piston calipers in the rear. Not great brakes, not made by a great company or anything like that. Now the Volkswagen Touareg comes with 6 piston Brembo calipers in the front and 4 piston Brembos in the rear. If you're not aware, the Volkswagen Touareg is on the same platform as the Porsche Cayenne from 2004 all the way to 2010. In that time frame, Volkswagen did not want to make different parts for each respective vehicle, so all the first half generations shared a lot of similar parts, and that was one of them. That the Touareg got Porsche Cayenne turbo brakes pretty much. So there are 350 millimeter rotors in the front, that's about 13.7 inches if I remember correctly, and 6 pistons, and then they're like 330 millimeter in the rear with 4 pistons. So you got really big Brembo brakes. The second thing doesn't apply to all Touaregs, but for me it is the factory air suspension. So my Touareg, I was lucky enough that mine has the factory air suspension. It is amazing for towing. It has auto leveling ride height sensors. It's more comfortable. It's more efficient, so you don't get that sag, you know, when you see people towing like this, when they have a heavy tongue weight, you know, it's like you see the trailer get put on and all of a sudden whoop, and it comes back and evens out. The air suspension was an additional option from the factory, so whoever ordered the vehicle, or if the dealership ordered, they had to opt for it, and I was lucky enough that mine has it. But the air suspension is worth every penny, even if you had to go spend a little bit more money to find one that has it. They usually go for slightly more, not that much more, but if you're considering a Touareg, get the air suspension. Now the T1s, which is the first few generations, or the first generation earlier models, they had air suspension issues. Pretty common. I have a T2, which is 2008 to 2010, so keep that in mind. If you look at for them, try to get a T2 from 08 to 10. Try to get a 10 if possible, like 9 or 10, because the later 2 years right before they changed the body style, it was a lot less issues, and they were a lot more reliable. Like mine, I've had mine for, where are we going on now? It's only been a few months, but I've already put like 6,000 miles on the vehicle, especially and towing decent loads, and I haven't had a single issue with the air suspension or anything yet. So the third reason is going to be the all-wheel drive system and the handling capabilities of the Touareg. The Touareg is not a very big vehicle. I mean, it is a full-size SUV, considered a full-size SUV. It does weigh the same as a Ram or Ford pickup truck of that era. It weighs about 5,400 pounds, 5,300 pounds. But the fact that it has all-time all-wheel drive, and then the way the Touareg is designed with the transmission and the way the clutches and ratios, it actually has almost a perfect 50-50 power distribution. So 50% power to the front, 50% power to the rear. I think before that, before the whole clutch situation and the way the electronics work, I think it's like a 70-30 split or a 60-40 split, but still, that's awesome to have. It gives you better handling, gives you better control of the vehicle, especially if you're driving in rain and stuff like that. Also the handling, I mean, I've driven trucks and stuff before, and the new trucks, obviously newer trucks, they feel a lot better, but the trucks back in that era in 2010 or even earlier, even some of the new ones now, depending on what options you get, I mean, there's a lot of body roll, so when you turn the steering wheel, you can just feel it sagging. There's a lot of, they're massive, they don't handle great. I mean, they handle decent, but it's like a different sensation, when you're driving the Touareg, it feels like you're driving a car. Like the thing grips corners really well. It's easy to drive. I mean, it really feels like you're driving a car. I know when I first got it, my wife was kind of concerned because she was like, oh, you know, SUV. She didn't feel comfortable driving an SUV every day because she never really had to. But when she started driving it, she realized like it's really not that big. You know, it actually worked out perfect, and it's an amazing vehicle to drive. It's a lot of fun to drive. So that's also another nice thing, and you can fit it in almost any parking spot in any location. You don't have to worry about being too long, too tall, or anything like that. Reason number 4 is going to be fuel economy. Surprisingly enough, when you're in the market for an SUV or a pickup truck or something like that that can tow a decent amount, you know, typically fuel economy is one of those things that some people want to keep behind their head because they need the vehicle in a sense of like for their job or for their personal benefit, you know, for towing or whatever, but they're not used to having a vehicle that uses gas, you know, fuel like that, you know, like an excessive amount of fuel. So a good example is my boss has a 2005 Ford F350. It's, you know, the 6-liter turbo diesel. It's been recently bulletproofed and everything like that. My boss on the highway on his best day, if he does enough highway driving, is about 18 to 19 mpg, sometimes less than that. In the city, because he does a lot of city driving and while towing and stuff, he gets like 11, 12 miles to the gallon towing, you know, 5,000 pounds in the city and all that stuff. To put that in perspective, my Touareg, which I'll throw some pictures up here, I drove 1,600 miles from Northern California to Killeen, Texas, where I live, towing my S6, which the full load was 6,500 pounds, and I averaged about 16.5 mpg for the entire trip. Now, when you're coming down from Fresno, California, and I'll throw them, you know, you can see it right here. When you're coming down from Fresno, California, there's a small mountain range that you have to go up and go over. It's not huge, like I've seen worse mountains and stuff, but the Touareg just downshifted a gear, and it was just sitting at 2,800 RPMs or so, just cranking up, you know, just holding speed and everything. I was passing trucks, I was passing pickup trucks with loads, and during that time where we're going up a pretty decent grade multiple times, that's the worst gas mileage I got. It was about 14 mpg, but still 14 mpg going up a pretty decent grade is pretty impressive. So everyday driving though, like the other day I drove with my car hauler. I have a 2,000 pound car hauler. It was empty on my way to Dallas, and I averaged 19.5 miles per gallon. And when I got my vehicle tuned, that's why I was heading to Dallas, and I was heading out of town after that. After the tuning, and then I kept driving, it jumped up to 21 miles to the gallon, and that was while towing the 2,000 pound trailer. So, you know, keep in perspective, like, you're gonna get a lot better gas mileage in this thing than you are in a pickup truck or something like that, and that might be a good selling point for some of you guys. For me, I've always had a thing for Touaregs. I've always wanted a Touareg. I knew what they were capable of. They were just very expensive. I mean, my vehicle I think was listed in the 70s or 80s brand new, so I wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway. So yeah. And my last reason is the compact size versus its tow capacity. So what I mean by that is, you know, when you look at a Touareg compared parked next to a pickup truck or parked next to whatever, most people, in today's world, it looks more like a mid-size SUV instead of a full-size. But the Touareg can tow respectively 8,000 pounds roughly, with 770 pound tongue weight. Now, before I get some of these people start shooting at me, because I know some people know about Touaregs, there was a misconception there was a change that Volkswagen did. Like, my owner's manual actually says 616 pounds, which is supposed to be the max tongue weight based off the max vehicle weight. But when you consider the actual hitch and everything like that, my hitch actually says 770, and it's based off the 10% rule. So 10% of your maximum capacity is your max tongue weight. So my max capacity is 7,716, so it would be 770 technically. There's been a lot of research done on Club Touareg and a lot of other places, and I've actually compared as well. When I bought my OEM hitch, I mean, the thing is heavy. The thing weighs about 75-80 pounds if I had to guess. It is like double welded in some places. It seems like it's a solid 1/4 inch thick steel, just heavy duty hitch. I compared it to my, you know, other trucks like my boss's F350 and stuff like that, and my hitch system is way more heavy duty than, you know, his hitch system. And you know, there's a lot of comparison. There's other people who've done that too. They said that the hitch is just overly packed. The transfer case inside the Touaregs, the rear differential, the axles, they're all pretty solid sizes and everything. They compare very similar to some of the, half-ton trucks out there. So realistically, most of us feel like it's fair to say that the Touareg can probably tow up to 9,000 pounds. They just did it because of other parameters. German people or Europeans, where the Touaregs are sold more, don't really tow like us Americans do, not to that extent. But a good example, if you guys want to know, is the Australian people. If you look at Touareg groups based out of Australia, or there's a Touareg group on Facebook, it's called Touareg Owners, like something like that. But there's a lot of guys there that are from Australia. In Australia, pickup trucks are very expensive for them. Like, there's like an additional tax, almost like, us getting high-end European cars or whatever. Like, they have to pay a premium for pickup trucks. So a lot of them use diesel-based SUVs, whether it's Touaregs or Porsche Cayennes or whatever. They probably have some, like some of the Land Rovers and Range Rovers, for example, that they get diesel versions and we don't. BMW X5s, whatever the case may be. But I've seen some guys in there with Touaregs towing crazy loads, like something I would have even never attempted. Like, I'm looking at being kind of close to my max. I'm like the trailer that we're looking at towing on a regular basis, it's the max vehicle weight is 7,000 pounds. The current dry weight after they weighed it and everything at the dealership is 6,300 pounds. So I'll be right under where I was at with the Audi. After we put our stuff, we'll probably be close to like 7,000 pounds. But this guy was towing a 36-foot double pop out, travel trailer. Thing probably had an 800 something pound tongue weight easily, maybe even 900 pound tongue weight and some other stuff. And this thing, he was like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like, that's something I would never go that big, but not with a Touareg at least. But he said it worked fine, and like I said, the Australians don't really have a choice. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Those are my top 5 reasons why I think the Volkswagen Touareg is an amazing tow vehicle. If anybody's wondering, you cannot use the same thought process with the Audi Q7. The Audi Q7's tow capacity is dropped to like 5,500 pounds, if I remember correctly, or 5,000 pounds, because it's a third row vehicle. But theoretically, you could say that you could probably tow the same, but most guys either buy the Porsche Cayenne or they buy the Volkswagen Touareg. So both of those have about the same, about almost 8,000 pound tow capacity, and they're both on the same exact chassis, same brakes, same everything like that. So I'm going to be doing some upgrades to my Touareg here soon. I already actually did the tuning process, which I'm going to talk about here in the future video, and what happened to me and why I did it now. But also I'm looking at bigger wheels and tires, so I can get some all-terrain tires with so I can actually get better stability on the road. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.